again, it wasn't, he'd already presented his information, and that exchange, in my opinion, was not something that I would want any other member of council to, be subject to. The other one was June 12th, the U.S. getting an LMCD update, and that was at minute 1:03:13. And some of the language he used during his LMCD update, again, I don't think that this is how we want our city being represented in chambers. And then the two emails were dated 6/13/23 and 6/15/23. And those are the ones I have here. Mayor Walsh and Councilmember Johnson were, I think you were included in maybe one of them. I don't know that Councilmember Crosby or Councilmember Veach has seen those. Staff did see some of these as well. And one of these was forwarded on by Mr. Anderson to a gentleman I don't know at Hennepin County, John Nicola. So I fully agree that residents reserve the right to give opinions to the council and whatnot. I guess what I'm looking for going into 2024 is that as a representative, which is a voluntary position in which Mr. Anderson is not obliged to continue if he chooses. But given the fact that he is interested in the role, and we as a council and I as the person who receives some of these emails are going to be interacting in the future, this is not something, this is not a manner of engagement that I would like to see going forward. And I would ask any of the fellow council members to have to receive a communication like that from one of our appointed officials. Because again, resident hat is one thing, but when you're appointed, then it's a different situation. So, as it relates to meeting with Mr. Anderson, I think that's something that would be fine to do. I think that's a situation where I'd ask, staff to be present or something like that. If it's simply a member.
Why would that be? I mean, he's just a resident.
Yes.
And a member.
Because, Councilmember Johnson, the tone of the emails, I'm saying in professional, it was aggressive. And I reserve the right to not meet with somebody and also.
Here's the thing, not to go down this path. You want tones and aggressive discussions and emails and so forth. The stuff that's come out this council has been reprehensible. And you know what I'm talking about, so we don't have to dance around it. I just find it incredibly interesting that all of that behavior was okay, but you had an email or something from one individual that you didn't necessarily like, but you never called out to poor behavior from the other parties. I just think it's so disingenuous. It's not consistent. We're talking about a guy who has been a resident of our area for an extremely long time, who actually lives in Orono, who's done great work on the LMCD. Great work. He's accomplished more than anybody I can remember.
Yeah. And
his philanthropic nature for our community has been tremendous. He's given dollars to support the canine unit. He's given dollars to support the relief in Orono Fire.
He stores our docks out at Big Island.
Yeah, and he's extremely capable of the job, and in a million years, I don't see that I personally would want to do a change. Now, do I think that people should address each other respectfully? Yes, 100%. I don't disagree with that. But when this is called out, I just think it's disingenuous when everything isn't called out.
Well, particularly if you haven't talked to him, call him up and let him know. I mean, I don't know. Do you respond to those emails?
I did. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I absolutely, Mr. Anderson had asked some questions, which I did respond to, and what came back after that was something I didn't respond to. So here's the thing, I think it's all true that we can have, whether it's Mr. Anderson or anyone, somebody who's capable in the position, somebody who's done good things for the city. That doesn't negate the fact that this individual is interacting through email with a member of council. And I don't know what sort of...
As the LMCD, was he sending that as a LMCD rep?
Well, he is our LMCD.
So I've had people from the outside not only do that, but do it through my work emails, so it's privy to my whole business.
And are they on, they're on our appointed...
No, they're not on
Okay,
an
so
appointed,
that's-
but they're also advocates.
Well,
of
so
yours.
the point is, if we as a council, or if I'm being asked to support an individual as somebody, it's not just anybody, it's somebody who we as a council say, we see value in promoting, the business of our city. And this is an individual who comes before us on some interval to address the council. I would say that there's a different level of expectation for that individual. And the question, I guess, would remain is if you've received, emails that you would deem as unprofessional, uncivil from whoever it is, or those individuals that you would appoint to represent our city.
Well, I know there's been a number of issues in terms of his land and what was said, maybe what wasn't said, or what was misconstrued, what was said, and I think he took offense to some of that, as I remember those conversations, but I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. It's duly noted. Do you have another one that you wanted to talk about?
Are they the same? Sorry, we go the same.
There's one of them has comments that then email is forwarded on to him, but some of it's what I'm looking for is an understanding about kind of where we go forward with this in 2024 and bringing it to the council because it's something that I think matters. And I try to act civilly and communicate civilly, whether through email or in council meetings, and I believe we all try that. So
Well,
if
I
we're...
would think that I would encourage you to reach out to him, maybe just via email and say, we've discussed this at our work session. I felt that I was, whatever you want to say, I think you should lay that out there and say, hopefully we can have a respectful conversation going forward. And hopefully he responds in kind, but I would...
I'd be happy to meet with you and him if that makes you more comfortable too.
I think an email, I'll start with the email.
Yeah, start with an email copy, add him on it.
Yep, that would be great, because again, this isn't something, none of this negates the work that Mr. Anderson's done. It's simply kind of moving forward with a different expectation of in engaging, whether it's me or staff or any of the rest of the council, just setting us a different standard. So that's that one. The others that I want to talk about are the legal and budget committees.
Okay.
So the reason I asked some copies to be made from other cities about their annual appointments, and there were 4 or 5 total here, I believe, is to get a sense of how other cities structure their committee assignments, and what other cities in particular with these two, the budget and the legal, have anything similar. And with the legal, there's no template in other cities around us for a legal committee. Now looks like it's implemented something called a finance or budget committee. So I did have some questions about these two in particular, given what I see happening in other cities. I wanted to know if these are two committees that have been recommended by staff.
I don't think any of these standing committees that we have were recommended by staff.
Okay.
They're all
I
council
think they're
generated.
all
Okay. Okay.
based on our knowledge of being able to get things done without having to have staff would obviously come to a council, kind of like we have the HR committee.
Yep.
They'll sit and talk about all this stuff, and we can make recommendations, and they bring a recommended version of what we talked about to us.
Right.
No different than that, so.
Okay. Then I have the same question for each, the budget and the legal. What is the problem that these committees were designed to solve?
Well, it's the exact problem I just told you about. I'll reiterate it again. We have 2 meetings a month, so staff can wait for those meetings, or we can get things done with the people who have good knowledge of the background of that to advise whether it's the legal, or it is the communication, or the budget, or the HR, to say this is where we think it's gonna go, and staff can get a good understanding of the direction, and get the answers taken care of in between meetings, or as many times during the week as we need to have conversations about it, without having to go get council approval to have those conversations. So that's what it's all been, just more from a inefficient business model.
I just, again, reference the fact that, you know, other cities are managing with work sessions and regular meetings to tackle these issues. And my concern is that taking the people's business as it relates to the budget, when you already have work sessions designated, 3 of them for budget, and also closed sessions for legal, in meetings that are not publicly facing. A, we don't have a quorum there to weigh in at the time, and B, it's no longer conducting as much of the city business in a public forum as possible. And I think those things are 2 areas that I personally value, and it looks like in general other cities around us are not doing this type of work, and I think it matters to look at how we are as a city on the continuum. So given the fact that these weren't recommended by staff, my other concern is that they create redundancies, and I think we can maybe look at it as, well, we're getting ahead of things, but we're also requiring that staff meet twice about each budget issue, whether it's enterprise or CIP or operations. Staff is meeting first with the budget committee, and then we're doing it again in a work session. So,
Well, I guess I would say that you're actually going to be probably getting more efficient use out of your time regardless, and so you're probably actually spending less time. But, and I'm not concerned with what other cities are doing. What I'm concerned about is how well we are getting our business done at this city. There's a lot of things that we have done, whether it's codes and everything else that we've done in the city, brought ourselves up to the standards that we do, that other cities don't even come close to doing, but it doesn't mean we aren't going to do it. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have a roads budget. So how many other cities have the roads budgets? Well, none of them do, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have a roads budget. So we've done a lot of things that we think is the most efficient way of getting things done in the vision that we want to have our city, and that's just one efficient way of getting things done and brought to the city. Can you continue moving things on without having to wait every 2 or 3 weeks for having a meeting to talk about something?
Is there a result that you're seeing in another city that you think we're missing out on results?
no, not results, just when you're looking at, this is the packet that shows 5 other cities around here that none of whom have the committees certainly related to legal, and maybe Mound has something.
They don't have a roads budget
I
either.
just think some of it comes down to, though, if you work backwards, it'd be, are you getting the results you need? If so, then you need to look at the process, because if there is no issue, and you're getting the results, if it was a metrics and.
Well, I guess that's a really good question, and I think given that the legal, I'll just look at that one most recently, was created in May of last year. Were we not getting results as a city regarding our legal cases before we created that committee?
Well, I guess I would say we had a lot of frivolous lawsuits that are little by little going by the wayside. And I think legal wanted to have be able to have additional conversations to give direction, and not wait for 2 weeks or not wait for a closed session, be able to have some guidance, and to bring that recommended guidance, which we have for all these committees, that we give people that we know have some insight in these issues, to bring as the guidance to get things done a little bit more efficiently so they can get those things done. So unless there's some issue that you want changed on here, we can just note that you do not approve of those committees.
So just to clarify, it was the legal, it was Soren who recommended that committee? You said legal recommended that we have.
No, I talked to Soren about it, and
And he thinks it's the right.
I don't
direction.
remember, this goes back to May, so we're going back a whole bunch of months, but we've been able to get through a lot of different communications between then and now that, you know, couldn't or shouldn't have been waiting for 2 weeks to get to a council to talk to.
With that, I mean, when it comes to legal direction, we as a city aren't able to give legal direction unless we do have a quorum.
We give our opinion, like we did at HR,
Sure.
no different. We gave our opinion and we thought, yes, that sounds good. And so they're taking that opinion based on the council having enough fortitude to say, I think these 2 people have enough information to give good guidance to staff. And so they'll bring that recommendation then to the council as well.
So how many times did legal meet last year?
So the legal committee has been a little bit different than the others. It didn't really meet until the council in the closed session designated the 2 members of that committee to be the council representatives for the Long Lake versus Orono case. Since then, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, mostly by phone.
I would say mostly by phone, yeah, because it's on the fly, it's not, because Soren operates out in Egan. So that's obviously kind of, we're not trying to get everybody to come out here all the time, so it's easier to pick up a phone and have a map here on the phone and give our guidance and our perspective and our expertise and what we think is good or bad and the questions that he has. Because he's obviously calling us to say hi. Adam's coming to the HR committee just to say hi, he's asking for some guidance.
Did staff recommend a HR be created? Is that helpful to staff? Is that right? Or you did not recommend it?
We didn't recommend any of these. These were all ideas that the council
So I guess
had. We've been facilitating.
The question is, it sounds like council deems these extra committees, 4 or 5 of them, valuable. I am wanting to know if you're able to talk a little bit about how these impact staff time, just on the highest level, if staff finds these valuable, and because it helps me understand what we're doing as a city better. If we're leading the charge in terms of utilizing staff time to the best of our capabilities, not having redundancies, streamlining the process, that's one thing. And I would question why other cities aren't doing that if that's the case. If you have anything to add, great. If it's not the right time for that, I perfectly understand. If you have any thoughts to share on how it's helpful to staff or not, I'd like to hear it.
Sure. So, walk the tightrope.
Yeah, and again, Adam, I'll say if this is not the right time or place, that's perfectly fine. This is just, we don't come together in other forums to be able to discuss things like this, and we do value stuff.
Sure. So in my honest opinion, it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
In some instances, these committees can generate additional staff work. As we mentioned, sometimes we prepare for the same meeting twice. Certain members of the staff have to have the same meeting twice, once in a committee and then once maybe at a work session. On the other hand, there have been times where individual committee meetings have been invaluable. The HR committee is one example where several years ago there was a little bit of contention between staff and council on human resources related issues, and the HR committee was formed, I don't know for that purpose, but it was formed, and it does allow, in that case, a sounding board where in kind of a non-attribution environment, I can say, hey, these are some ideas we're having, we're not throwing up a camera or the public to just get some honest feedback of, at least what the 2 council members think about this particular initiative or what happened. So there's some value there, but honestly, it can be a mix. I think in the case of the legal committee, that one's one where we have to operate carefully. I think the one, that committee hasn't, so far in any case, and I try to put it as I try to write the purpose statement in there, it hasn't meant to cover general legal things that Soren or Mr. Talon, if we were talking prosecutorial things, would bring to council anyway, with the exception of, when the council decided during closed session who our council representatives were going to be in mediation, and with that one particular case. So in my experience, that's the only real time that legal committee has officially met was in relation to that case and moving that forward and being the basis for the city council in those instances. Now, the other thing to remember about that too is even like in a court case like that, even if we were to go to mediation and agree on something, it's not agreed till it comes. None of these things are agreed until the entire council votes on any of those, whether it be litigation or any of these items, the budget, what have you. So, I rambled a little bit, but to me there is value in certain circumstances. If we get into a situation where we're having standing committees meeting to have meetings, yes, I do worry about the drag that can have on staff.
Well, and we would expect you to say something, right? I mean, and so unless you're, you're representing a concern that you've heard from staff, that hey, we don't want these anymore, that's one thing. But what I will say is, this is an interesting job because we're part-time and they're full-time. And as a result of that, there's gonna be redundancy. There's no such thing as, the staff works on our behalf. And that includes them stopping what they're doing at times and telling us what they're doing. And that's...
Or having to take phone calls from somebody for 2 hours to go through something.
That's right. And so, I think it's wise to always be looking at efficiencies to do that. I don't think this is an example of an inefficiency that's, these committees are not an example of inefficiencies that need to be eliminated. And so I think there's great value in them. I know I learn from them, and I think staff learns from us during them. And I agree that I'm not so concerned with what other cities are doing. If it's working for our city, then we do it.
And I thought during closed session, the legal was because we needed 2 people to go to mediation anyway, so designating those 2 people because we couldn't have a quorum at mediation, that was that's how I remember the meeting.
Correct, that was something that our
That was
attorney
part
in
of
that case actually was, we wanted to get a couple council members to be part of the mediation. So, we ended up using the legal committee. And in that instance, I think that's an instance where it worked well.
And no, I'm not, there's nothing that staff has indicated to me. I'm not representing anyone other than myself, in my opinion. I think it's just noteworthy and helpful at the beginning of the year when we're looking at all these different committees, and Orono has outnumbered other cities by multiple committees. That it's simply a good idea to have an open dialogue about what the purpose of those meetings are, and also allow staff the chance to weigh in.
I think we've also got rid of a few committees over the last couple of years. I think our code review committee, which was very, very busy for the first couple of years, we changed, and you guys brought us lots of stuff. We had 8 or 9 other people on that committee, developers and architects and all sorts of people. But after getting through a couple of years of getting all those codes changed and figured out, and we kind of wound that one down. So now it's just, I don't think we even have that one. So some of them we've wound down, which they really don't need, but I still think the ones that we have on here are actually the ones that make a lot of sense in terms of what we have going on right now. I think HR is always going to be ongoing. I think legal is always a positive one. I know Soren has a number of times has called, and they were meetings that he called between meeting and our communications committee. I think we're looking at next week is just looking at just the future of where communications takes us, which I think is important for the city as we've gotten bigger and everything else. And social media is a much bigger footprint and platform these days. And the budget committee is obviously always good to have financial people on there to understand the direction of where we want to continue to move. And obviously Councilman Benson knows the whole HR, so we just have one.
Does have a good point though. We could talk about having one person on each committee at least log notes for the year, not city time, but say this is about how many hours by the end of the year to have something for each. I don't know if that would be helpful.
I think what I'm hearing is that, I know staff, maybe sometimes it's a mixed bag and sometimes the way it goes, but what I'm hearing in general is that the committees are ones that the council in general is finding benefit to. So I'm not looking to change that necessarily. I was looking at an understanding about why we implemented them, exactly what they're doing, and whether or not these are committees that need to continue into the future. The only other one, and it's not a committee we actually have, but in looking at other cities, it's something I did see, and actually we all, or at least I think we all got copies of the some information out of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District in November, a packet from them. And this is an organization I don't know a lot about, but as Orono is known as the Lakeshore City, obviously it's something that probably affects our city a lot. We don't have a representative from the City of Orono that's designated as a liaison or whatnot to this watershed district, and I don't know the history of that. in the city.
I had worked with them for a bit on my personal property, and I believe that they're not, it wasn't necessary at least anymore. They had removed themselves from.
So the Watershed District has a board. Their board is appointed by, I think, the county commissioners. I looked after you raised that today. I didn't see anything on their website anywhere where to have any kind of liaisons from cities. We do, we have spoke before the board with elected officials in the past. We have a very standing or very solid relationship with them at the staff level. We were probably on the phone with them daily, if not at least a few times a week, from Laura's department. And then most recently we had both Laura and Melanie were appointed to the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee for the Watershed. But I did look. I was looking to see if maybe there was some elected official committee or something they might have. I couldn't find anything.
I don't think there's ever, I've ever known that they've not.
There's a general citizens committee, but they just take applications directly from citizens.
We as a staff have that standing task, so whenever they have a project, we as staff attend with them on project-based stuff, and they often will have workshops for policies when they're working to rewrite their policies and stuff. When they invite us, we make sure to send a representative at the staff level to attend and give input and feedback. I think they sent out a report about they're starting like a water resource management for some rewriting of policy. So we did that last year with them. That was like a 3-6 meeting policy thing. So we join when they have openings and they ask us to give feedback.
I always see that as a staff thing. Right?
Yeah.
There are some of our neighboring cities that maybe don't have staff that are focused on planning or water resources or things like that. And I know in some of those meetings where I've been there, the person representing another city might be one of their elected officials, and there are some other type organizations where if I go as a staff member, then another particularly smaller cities will have this is they send one of their elected officials. They just don't have this. Either they're really interested in that subject, or they just don't have the staff to cover it.
Yeah, I joined up when a commissioner has attended or like a council member has attended. I've also been in groups giving feedback when they've sent consultants. So lots of times you'll see a Bolton person there and they're like, I'm here for A, B, and C city, and they're kind of representing multiple cities. So that's common, but I don't recall a meeting where that's focused on elected officials being appointed as a board.
No, so we have staff though that are covering this position if there's a meeting or money. Does this organization ever come to speak before our council
They
or
have.
others?
They
For
have,
certain initiatives or whatnot?
They have for bigger projects. That they have.
or if we request, like if we're doing a policy, sometimes we're on the comp plan, or if we're doing a big policy revamp, when we're asking for their input, or what they're doing directly impacts the project, that we can ask them and they'll come give updates and feedback to their policies and stuff. They've always been really open to coming and talking.
That answers that. That's all I have.
All right, anybody, anything else? Okay, adjourn and get ready for the meeting.
Hi, Nance. How are ya? How are ya? Good. Good. Did you have a good holiday? Yeah. Quiet.